بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. لله تبارك وتعالى. We begin with praising Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala while sending countless blessings and salutations on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his noble and honorable companions, and all of those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. And we ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us sincere intentions. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another gathering of the Black Imams Roundtable. I am joined, alhamdulillah, with my two colleagues, companions, our beloved Imam Faheem Lee and our beloved Imam Naeem Abdullah. And I am Imam Amin Muhammad, and we are the Black Imams who make up the Black Imams Roundtable. And I wanted to remind you of the importance of the Black Imams Roundtable before we get into our subject. The Black Imams Roundtable is an intentional platform to promote African American Black leadership. It's extremely important in the time we live that our voices are heard. Imam Faheem, you put your thing in the wrong spot. It's very important that our voices are heard. And I've had, and we together, collective, had the pleasure with your support to travel around the country. And one thing that we are noticing on my last few trips is that Black Muslim leadership, and I mean Black Americans, African Americans, is slowly disappearing. And the voice of those African American imams is disappearing with their bodies. And the significance of their input to the discussion is absent, to almost disregarded. So having platforms like the Black Imams Roundtable has an historical importance for future generations to come. That they will always be able to look back and say, this was the position of our leaders, our imams. And we don't claim, nor should we, that we represent all of the voices of African American imams. But I think we can safely say that we represent a courageous voice among the voices of African American imams. And if we speak in our voice, in our language, as a community, as a people, I would say our voices represent a strong feeling in the African American Muslim community. And since that's the case, it's of dire importance that we support this platform, that we spread and share the message that's shared on this platform. And I was listening to a discussion about Black wealth and prosperity. And one of the things they mentioned that is a challenge and a struggle for our communities is the lack of community. They said, we don't have communities, we have neighborhoods. And even in some of it is so bad that the neighbor is taking out the hood and all we have left is a hood. But community, which supports itself, which invests in itself, which supports itself, is really something that is missing. And we talk about it often, that we need to support ourselves. We need to invest in ourselves. We need to spread the message which works for our best interests. And I see all those things in the Black Imams Roundtable. And the efforts that we're doing, and you've watched us do over the years, needs to increase. And through your support, inshallah, tabarak ta'ala, it will increase. So that was my open thought about that. So share the link, share the session, support the session. We have various ways for you to support, and do it realizing that you're having your portion in improving the education and knowledge base and spirituality and communal development of our communities around the country, not just these imams, but these imams reach out to other imams, therefore connecting communities across the country. And inshallah, with your support, with your diligent support, not only with your resources, but also with your personal involvement at the levels you can do, it will make us successful, inshallah. May Allah make it so. As for the topic tonight, we're continuing in our series about the series of discussions that we had about the rubber, where the rubber meets the road. And we reached up to the aspect of al-fiqh. And one of the things that we wanted to address tonight is this concept and statement that we hear often: I follow the Quran and the Sunnah. What does that really mean? What should be intended from that statement? What some may intend? And how do we reconcile between what we're talking about, which I mentioned last week, how we need to follow the practical rules of the religion, in other words, ilm al-fiqh, the science of fiqh, and how does that relate to this popular slogan that I follow the Quran and Sunnah? And how did the previous great imams and scholars and those learned people before us address this topic and reconcile it with, for instance, following al-madhahib or following schools of thought? So tonight we want to have a lively discussion about this concept: I follow Quran and Sunnah. And how is it applicable in our lives on a daily basis, and what does that look like? You know, we all understand that every Muslim claims to follow the Quran and the Sunnah, and as they should. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran, obey Allah and the messenger, right? obey Allah and the Messenger, which means obeying Allah, the Quran, and obeying the Messenger, the Sunnah. So inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, based on this command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and many other verses and hadith that we will discuss, how is this to be applied in our lives, right? Inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, this should be a great show. And there is a reason why we talked about this, why we went into this subject, because many people, they hear this term, and by way of this saying, they're turned off from following al-madhahib, following a school of thought. In other words, they would say, I don't follow no school of thought or no imam, I follow Quran and Sunnah. And for them, that means that I'm on the truth. And that's something that needs to be unpacked. Like, it's extremely important to unpack that statement, because it has had a devastating effect due to its misunderstanding practically on the ground, especially in the African-American community. It has had its problem everywhere. But in the African-American community, because of the situation of our community, it's been devastating, such a concept. So inshallah, tabarak wa ta'ala, we want to dive into that, unpack that statement, put some context to it, and inshallah, hopefully, we come out of it on the other side of this program much more educated. Inshallah, tabarak wa ta'ala. So with that, that is my open. I remind you, as in the voice of my beloved Imam Faheem, drop that bread, right? Like, we have work to do, and we can't be shy in our work. And let me tell you something before we go on, before I pass the mic. You know, it's political season, right? So I watch the various candidates come on the TV or on social media, and they fundraising for their campaign. And they're not shy about it. They're diligent. Like, this is the final moments. We got to really put in the fight. Every small donation count, even if it's $5, you know, like, they're on it. And I was thinking to myself, they getting millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're still looking for $5. And their mission is going to be a mission for most of us of destruction. And some of us actually send those campaigns money. And we like, yeah, we got to make sure so-and-so don't get in office or this candidate get in office. And I'm like, for our own real importance, for our hereafter, we don't realize that we got to chip in. I was thinking about, every time I see one of those commercials, I think about us. I'm like, yeah, for us as leaders and imams, we have to make those commercials. This is the commercial, right? And for us as a community, we have to realize how important it is to put the right leaders in front of the people to spread the knowledge and to fight for our cause. And you have to chip in for that, right? So don't be shy, chip in, right? Chip in big time. Chip in the minimum and chip in the maximum you can, but chip in so we can get this job done. May Allah reward you. May Allah accept you. And inshallah, I'll pass the microphone to whatever those great imams, Imam Faheem and Imam Naeem, whoever fights for superiority, the winner take all.
I'll go next because somebody at the status of Imam Naeem deserves the anchor. You know, when we're in the cipher, he gets last. You know, Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. Again, we'd like to welcome you all to the Black Imams Roundtable with tonight's podcast. We ask Allah, who's subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept this from us and to give us beneficial knowledge, give us righteous actions, and make this gathering one that will be pleasing to him and that it will be a benefit to all those who listen currently and those who may listen later. And again, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put this on our scale of good deeds. Amin. And so also to follow up with Otis, please be sure to share this on your platforms, inshallah, so we can get around those algorithms. And then also be sure to drop that bread. We asked for a little crumb. Some of y'all holding on loaves. Some of y'all got loaves that the bread long enough that it can go stale. You could throw the loaf away and bake a new one. All we ask is for a few crumbs, So make sure, inshallah, that we try to cover the suggested donation of $10 per person for all those who are listening, those who may listen. So it helps us to continue our work, inshallah ta'ala. And yes, also to follow on the what Imam Amin was mentioning, this very important topic of, I follow the Quran and Sunnah, and so a very popular phrase, so much so that sometimes in certain areas, in certain regions, you'll hear people say like, yeah, Akhi, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, Kayfa halik, hey, how you doing? What's up, man? Quran and Sunnah, or Allah and His Messenger, as if they're not talking to another Muslim that gave them salams. Like, we don't know Quran and Sunnah is what's up. That's what we live by. And so two things that happens when you hear this phrase about, I follow Quran and Sunnah. The first one is that when people engage in dialogue with someone that they might be debating or whatever, they are implying that the person, when they are engaging them and they might use, follow the madhahib, they will imply that they are not following Quran and Sunnah, and this whole jargon about, following the opinions of men and all this kind of stuff. So they will imply that a Muslim who was following a curriculum that's been passed down for 1,000 years, that they somehow are not following Quran and Sunnah. It's just all opinions of people they pass down, like as if the madhahib, I think this is right, I think this is right, and I think this is wrong, and this is my opinion, And the other thing that's implied in when a person says that they themselves follow Quran and Sunnah is that, that they have the capability to go to the Quran and knowing all of the sciences of the Quran, first of all, having memorized it, because if you follow Quran and Sunnah like that, then you should have it in your heart, that they know all the sciences, they know the abrogating ayats and all of those kind of things. They know all of the ayats related to ahkam. They know all of the ayats related to all of the other things, and they know all the sciences of the Quran. And then they understand what the Sunnah is, And we know that the Sunnah, it means it's something different when the fuqaha are referenced the Sunnah. It's something different when the scholars of Hadith are referencing the Sunnah. It has different connotations when the awliya or the people of Tasawwuf are referencing the Sunnah, And so they are implying that I follow Quran and Sunnah, like I have all of these qualifications and tools that are necessary as a foundation, that I can just go to the Quran and I can follow it up with a Hadith, and and then I will listen to what someone else says, and that's a big problem. And another thing that also is implicit in this kind of thing is that I just lost my train of thought. But at any rate, it's this has been problematic because people will, act as if they know how to decipher information, they know how to extract rulings, they know what the scholars have said before them, and also almost on an individual level that they have the capability to follow, the revealed law of the Quran and the Sunnah. And we know it's much more complicated than that. And so we're going to explore tonight how problematic that statement is. How problematic that statement is. We've already said some things about it, but to go into detail, how problematic that is for one to just say that they follow Quran and Sunnah. But in reality, what they're really saying is that I'm following someone else's interpretation of Quran and Sunnah that they give to me, but I won't say that as such because I don't want to be guilty of blind following and stuff, whatever they say, But in reality, you're following someone's interpretation. You yourself are not following Quran and Sunnah because you yourself, which includes me, you don't know Quran and Sunnah like that. You don't have the qualifications, because when we learn about the scholars that have came before us and the qualifications that they had, that they knew the Quran, they knew the different modes of recitation, they knew all of the rules, the rules of ahkam and all of those things. And then they knew the Sunnah and the different sciences related to Hadith. And they, not only that, they memorized at least 100,000 of them, the major scholars of that time. And then they knew all of the sayings of the scholars, and all of the things that the relied upon opinions, and all of that has been passed down. And so that's what we have in the madhahib, the 4 schools of Sunni law. And then now compare that to someone says, I follow Quran and Sunnah, which they really means that everything they know where to find Dalil at. They know the ruling for this, that, and the other. They know how many hadith are related to a particular issue. They know where to find them. They know all of the chains of narration. And we know that that's not the case for many people, even for people who claim to be learned. Because when we know what is knowledge in Islam, then we also know what's not knowledge. When we know the prerequisites for someone to be a scholar and different levels of scholarship, then it's easy to discern what is not scholarship. And then when we learn that, and the more we understand these principles, the more we're able to weed out these people who are passing off this slogan as if they have some, profound knowledge, when in reality, they don't have the basics, And so we're going to explore this in detail, inshallah, tonight. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a clear and firm understanding, because some of the things that we're going to discuss, which is, part of being on the Black Imams Roundtable, we ruffle feathers sometimes. Sometimes we say things, that we might invite a little smoke, we might, say some things that people might inbox us later. Whatever the case, we're ready for it, inshallah ta'ala. But these things really need to be discussed, because as we get forward into we move deeper into the discussion, part of this is a result of some of the things that have been said and indirectly, aimed at us and people who are like us, and some of the issues and how we discuss them. Now, granted, sometimes, on an open platform, some issues don't need to be discussed. But when you see some of the things that keep recurring, they have to be addressed, and this is how the Salaf, when people said things that were not referenced right, or they didn't, they wasn't passed down, they checked them about it. They went to them and like, where did you get this from? Where do you get this understanding from? Who taught you this? Who told you that? And this is very important in these days and times, because we get a lot of people who are online, many times they're not tried and true. We don't know their background. We don't know where they're coming from. And then they come out and then they say that they're teaching traditional knowledge. And then when we get down to the root of the matter, they are, just selecting things and not really following a code, not really following the method that's been passed down for 1,000 years. So this is something that, with our family here, the 3453 family, sometimes, we just going over old, we like saying, talking to the choir, but we're also concerned with people who may, review this later on. We get a lot of people, and I'm sure Imam Naim will agree, a lot of people who contact us offline and really, discuss with us, how important this show is and how we represent them, the things that we're talking about, and so that's also important to us as well, in addition to our 3453 family who, joins us every week, and we appreciate you all. And so, inshallah, as we get into this discussion, we hope that it will be a very fruitful one, and to address some of the, things that are going on out there, and why we need to address it in the manner that we need to address it. One thing that we often mention, there's some people when they discuss things, they don't understand the environment that we're in, and I have something that I'm going to share with you all to why we have to address this all the time. Because it is very important, because we're getting, people who are coming into Islam. And I had a very candid discussion with a brother a couple of days ago, and he was just saying, like, you know, a lot of people are coming into Islam, and you know, they know all of these issues about what masjid to go to, what minhaj is, who's a deviant, who isn't, and then they don't even know the rulings of prayer. They don't even know how to recite Al-Fatiha, and then they're online saying things that, you know, they don't need to even be involved in. And maybe an excuse is made for them because they haven't been trained properly. But then there are people who are teaching them these things or allowing these things to be, you know, related to them and not correcting them. And then there are people who are deliberately, who have an agenda, are teaching these people things because they are having a background in, you know, dissension and dividing and splitting the Muslims. And so we're going to really be discussing that, inshallah ta'ala. So, you know, stay tuned. All right, so I'll pass it. The genius stepped off for a minute. You know, I'm sure when he comes back, he's coming back, you know, jumping right on the stage, you know what I mean? Coming right out with the mic, you know, so y'all be ready to throw your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care. Because when the genius come out, you know, he's coming out booming, you know? All right, Imam Amin, you got something to Imam Naeem returns?
Yeah, I wanted to bounce off some things you said. I didn't hear all of it, but I heard some of it, and I think it was very important. And I want to say this. The theme of this series of talks we've been having, when the rubber meets the road, right, in Aqidah, in fiqh, and we're going to be coming to at-tasawwuf, right, which are the primary Islamic sciences. For us, one of the most important things that I think we should focus on, I'm talking about as a community, and all of us must look at us as a community. So even those who are not necessarily African American, right? And when we say that African American, Black American, descendant of African descendants of slave, whatever term you like to use, you know, let me stop. When we say Black in American context, do y'all understand what we're talking about? Please, this requires a response. When we say Black, do y'all all understand in the American context what we're talking about and who we're referring to? I just, a yes, no, maybe so. Imam Naeem, I'm on your time. You stepped off, so I got to take my shots, right? But this is important.
Real quick, some people think that we don't understand what it means, man.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm concerned about that. Like, there's a lot of people in here. Say yes, no, don't hide. Like, yes, no. Because if we're talking and we don't understand what we're saying, that's a problem. Because there is a context by which we're talking.
They can say yes and still not know what we talk about. Right, we could be talking about two different groups of people.
All right, but I think if they understand, let's make sure, and I'm explaining, right? So when we say an African who's from Africa and immigrated to America, when we say Black, we're not referring to him, right? We're not talking about skin color necessarily of you a dark skin color. We're not talking about that. We're talking about African people whose descendants were slave, who are descendants of people who were taken in captivity, brought to America, and they were born here and were raised in this context. That's who we're talking about. What they used to call the American Negro, right? We're talking, that's a specific people, unlike other people. So the basic context of our discussion oftentimes is rooted in that experience. If you don't have that experience, some of the things that we talk about may be lost upon you, right? You know, there's the old saying, they used to say it, I know in my day, when I was a little younger, they would say it's a Black thing you wouldn't understand. Y'all remember that? So it's a certain, you know, context by which we talk. You must understand that. The Black Imams Roundtable is called the Black Imams Roundtable because of that context. And that's what Imam Faheem was indicating. Like, we dealing with certain stuff. Yeah, it's a context. Let me tell you what happened to me the other day. Well, it was last week. Man, time flies. Not this Thursday that just passed, the previous Thursday. I got racially profiled in my city. I was devastated, right? I'm like, wait, you know who I am? That was one of the times I was like, you know who I am? I got pulled over. And I was offended because I don't expect to get pulled over, not me. If you understand the context, I'm Imam Amin. In Atlantic City, that means something. In the Black community, and like even with the police, that means something. He's not just anybody, right? So pulling me over is like, didn't you run my tag? Right? like, what are you doing? Right? And when the officer came up to me, let me tell you the context so you can understand why it was racial profiling. That I thought was dead. Yeah, it was dead because you ain't been hanging around the hood a lot. Guys in front of me, the officer, he's driving in front of me. He's looking in the mirror. He sees just a black guy. I'm not in no fancy car. I wasn't driving the fancy car. I was driving my regular car that I drive all the time, right? He actually slowed down. He was in the far right lane. I'm in the lane next to him, right? His car is in front of me. He backs up, slows down, lets me pass, then struggles to get behind me and pull me over. I'm like, this is incredible. So as he comes up to me, I looked at him like, why you pull me over? And I had that look, like I was getting ready to give him the blues, but I try to behave myself. So I said, why you pull me over? He said, oh, you was riding in the passing lane too long. I said, come on, man, you can't be serious. Like, stop. Like, you got to come better than that. So as I pull out my wallet, he said, well, just give me your driver's license. And when I pull out my wallet, my ID, which is a certain kind of ID, flashes on him. He's like, uh-oh, right? Like, uh-oh, I made a mistake. And I'm looking at him like, he's like, oh, where did you get that from? I said, I am who I am. I told him who I was. He goes back and he's like, well, I'm sorry I had to pull you over, but, then he's walked around the car to find something else to try to justify why he pulled me over in the front. So he's looking at my sticker's okay. Then he goes back and he writes a warning of something I never heard of. Wasn't even an infraction. I don't know what the heck that was, right? But he didn't want to go to court or even risk the embarrassment of pulling me over. And one time we had, I'm sorry, I'm just giving you some context. One time we had, during the Black Lives Matter, we had a rally, not a riot. They had a rally that turned into a riot. Then they had another rally that we came out to make sure it didn't turn into a riot. You might have saw it, it kind of went viral, that video. And when I was giving that talk, one of the guys said, we shouldn't have to have your kind of connections not to be harassed, which is true. You shouldn't have to be influential not to be harassed. I'm saying all that to say what? That Black people have a context. They dealing with certain things that are undeniable. Even if you so-called elevate in status, eventually, somewhere, you're going to be shown, nah, that's still your plight, you Black, right? So even though I walked out of that with nothing, and probably could go make him apologize if I wanted to push it, right? But at the end of the day, that's a reality for many African Americans, especially young Black males. That's a reality. That's an everyday reality for them, right? I'm saying that just so you understand context, right? Context. So when we're talking about certain things, even in religion, there is a context that is affected in our communities that we talk about. So I just wanted to touch on that. I hope my point, I told you that story, not to, not to make it about me, but for me, in my position in my city, that was like, and even the officials that I talked to about it, because I'm always mixing with officials, they're like, we need to take that to this, we need to bring that officer in. Only because it's me, that's going to be done. How many people he probably did that to, right? That just victimized, right? And I said, really, we need to actually make change so that don't happen to nobody. Don't make an example because it's me. The real change would come when no person has to feel that. So I would rather work on that sensitivity training, watching the records of officers. To me, that's more important, right? To actually, because I can do what others might not can do. I can sit down with the mayor. I can sit down with the council president. I can sit down with the chief of police. I can sit down with the sheriff. I can sit down with the prosecutor. I can sit down with the captain in the state police or the lieutenants. And I can sit down with the attorney general. That's me. How many others got that opportunity? You follow my point? So context is important. And I'm saying that just for that person, that purpose, context. So when we talk about these issues, keep context in mind. And Allah knows best. Go ahead.
I got so many things in my head connected to what you just said. I'm going to try to stay on topic. You know, one thing that came to my head.
In other words, I'm a privileged Negro. Now,
you know, some of you may be too young for this reference, but you think you tough. That's what he said when he pulled you over? You think you tough.
No, he was actually like, please don't make this an issue. I'm sorry. Right? He's like, listen, bro, it was an accident.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Wa radiyallahu ta'ala an sadat al-tabi'een wa ulama al-amilin wa a'immat al-arba'at al-mujtahideen wa muqarridihim ila yawmiddin. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Imam Amin spoke about context. So I'm going to begin based upon my context, my observation, where I'm from. I became Muslim. We hear Imam Faheem Keys just typing away. He think he muted.
Oh, my bad. Well, I thought you somebody else.
I became Muslim in the early 1990s. The early 1990s. And I think it's important to understand that all of us, a lot of times we don't really question ourselves and say, hey, that idea, that thought, that position, that opinion, where did I get it from? A lot of us, we don't ask ourselves that question. And so I was thinking about the information that was readily available to Muslims in the English language where I'm from. and I'm from the Northeast, specifically New York City, but everything I say can apply to New Jersey, Philadelphia, the Mid-Atlantic states, right? So when I embraced Islam, most of the books that you can buy in bookstores, and back in the early 1990s, there was still a lot of bookstores. Well, we weren't online like that. So if you wanted a book, you had to go to a bookstore. And even if you were incarcerated, you had to order from a book catalog. And you had to get your books mailed to you from a bookstore. So in the early 1990s, most of the books that were on the shelves were coming directly or indirectly from Egypt or Pakistan. Egypt or Pakistan. And these books were expressing the thoughts from primarily two movements, two groups, Ikhwanul Muslimin and Jamaat al-Islami. Ikhwanul Muslimin in Egypt, Jamaat al-Islami in Pakistan and other Desi places. You have to understand that in the early 1900s, there was a call to return to the early sources, meaning the Quran and the Sunnah. The thinking by some thinkers, primarily based in Egypt, was that, hey, the Muslims are being colonized by non-Muslims. And the reason for this losing and this colonization by the Europeans is because we're backwards, meaning the Muslims. And the reason why we're backwards, because we are stuck in the early generations of Islam, and our thinking is not fluid. This is what they were saying. And so they said we need to go back to the earliest sources and to reinterpret ourselves in the late 19th and early 20th century, the Quran and the Sunnah. The three main people involved in this was Jamaluddin al-Afghani, Muhammad Abdu, Rashid Rida. And Muhammad Abdu decided to call this way of thinking Salafiyah. That's what he called it. Little different from the Salafiyah that you think about right now. But the name is basically the same, Salafiyah. And so this is what they advocated. They were some of the first Muslims that had access to the printing press. They used to publish their own newsletters. One of them was called Al-Uratul Wuthqa. And this publication used to circulate throughout the Muslim world. And this is how they influenced the Muslims in what would become Pakistan and that whole area there. And they inspired the group called Jamaat al-Islami. So that thinking did what I call the unchaining of the unqualified, or the unleashing of the unqualified. In other words, every Muslim, regardless of his or her qualifications or lack thereof, all of them have the right and the obligation to go directly back to the Quran and Sunnah and interpret it for themselves and their condition. And even, I just give you one weird example of this. Muhammad Abdul even wrote his own tafsir, even though he's not qualified for it, wasn't qualified for it. And in that tafsir, he said, for example, that a Muslim can eat any type of food he wants, regardless of how it's slaughtered, because slaughtering meat is not a religious act. It's a secular act. That's dangerous for a lot of reasons. Number one, this is supposed to be a tafsir of Quran. I'm trying to figure out what Quran he was reading that doesn't talk about slaughter. And number two, he introduced the idea, the false narrative of religious and secular. And this is dangerous because the British used their influence to make him the dean or the mudir of Al-Azhar. So I mentioned that because he was part of a movement that by the time my time period comes, when I become Muslim, 1990, about 80, 90 years after them, right? Their students' books are being published and translated in English for people like me to read and digest. And then, in my context, I'm talking from my perspective. In the mid going towards the late 1990s, a book got translated into English, and it was very popular. And I have it right here. The Prophet's Prayer, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, described from the beginning to the end as though you see it, by Sheikh Muhammad Nasruddin Al-Albani. Go ahead, Imam, take your shot.
I'm gonna leave that alone.
that thing's still shiny though. that gloss they put on there is like a 20-year joint, ain't it?
Yeah, because I brought this. Did I write the date on it? No, I usually write the date when I buy a book in it. I didn't write it on it. But we all agree that this book was popular in the hood, right?
Not in my hood.
Is it still popular today? I don't know.
Not really.
Mm.
Go ahead. I'm gonna mess this whole thing up with my jokes. So I'm gonna leave this alone.
The reason why I mention this, man, I just tried to fold it back and I cracked it. Because before he gets to what he says the Prophet's prayer was, the whole introduction is speaking against madhahib. And I know from personal interactions that this introduction, this idea affected a whole lot of us. A whole lot of us who may have not known anything about a madhab. Once we read this book, we was against it. Also during that time period, got another one. Matter of fact, I got two, but I'm only going to go mention one. Right?
I mean, since you're sharing, come on, don't be stingy.
It ain't like you had to reach deep in the library neither. Like they like right
so
there.
It was actually right over there. You can't see where I'm pointing, but it's like
low
6
hanging
feet
fruit
from me, right?
Low hanging fruit.
I got all these books in the corner right here in one section, and it's right there, right? When I became Muslim during this time period, I said I became Muslim early 90s, but now my mind is like the mid 1990s. Some of the books that were very popular on the bookshelves at that time were the books authored or translated by Dr. Bilal Phillips. So a lot of us learned our Aqidah based upon his writings. Let me see if I wrote the date on this one. Nope.
We got a spin-off podcast coming before the Shehu.
Before the Shehu. I like that. But another one, which is more relevant to what we're talking about, the evolution of fiqh.
Hey, now listen. Let me tell you something. Look, I remember, put that book back up. That's a horrible translation. That is not what that says, right? But just think about it. They would just pass anything. This is like, you are translated. That's not what that says. That says the history of the fiqh schools, right? Or the schools of jurisprudence. How did you get the evolution of fiqh out of that? There's two different whole, but what I mean, you were dishonest on your cover.
Subhanallah.
Right? On your cover, you wasn't even translating properly. I'm just hindsight, right? So a guy got this book, the cover is wrong, and he's ready to debate.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Right? And think about it. The cover is wrong, and you want to debate. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just like, I'm sorry, just think about that. The cover is wrong. What's inside? On the cover. You couldn't even get the cover right.
This is inside. I don't know if y'all can see that, but it says he's pointing to different places around the Kaaba. He says the picture, the caption, the Holy Mosque and the Honorable Kaaba in 1302/1884 through 85, right? And it says Shafi'i prayer place at the bottom, Hanbali prayer place top, Maliki prayer place, Hanafi prayer place, right? And regardless of what he says or doesn't say in there, most of us who came away from reading it, we blamed the madhahibs for the differences in the downfall of the ummah. Right? Say, look, all the division right at the Kaaba. See, it's in the book. The madhabs cause all of this, right? This is the misunderstanding that many of us walked away with, and also many of us, we came away from in these books. This is the first time we came across the lie that the reasons why the Malikis pray with their hands by their side is because they're imitating Imam Malik. And Imam Malik only prayed like that because he had his shoulders dislocated by the Amir or the Khalifa. And so the Malikis, they're not even following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're following Imam Malik. And the lie came from that book right there. And so I'm saying, just for us to critically think from the perspective that we come from, where do we get these opinions from? And a lot of us, and we won't be honest with ourselves about it, a lot of us, especially if we were Muslim back then, a lot of our adverse opinions against madhabs came from these same books that I just showed you, or other books like them. But I think we have to really introduce critical thinking. We always talk about it, but critical thinking. Many of us, when we say we follow Quran and Sunnah, we have in our mind that, okay, Quran and Sunnah versus following the madhab. That's the way a lot of us think. I'm Muslim. I know you got a lot of Muslims following those madhabs, but you can also follow Quran and Sunnah. As if people that follow the madhabs don't follow Quran and Sunnah. And a lot of these types of publications promote the lie and the false idea that you can't follow the Quran and Sunnah if you're following the madhabs. And that's a straight up lie. Simple critical thinking will rescue us from that. I just give you a clear example. Because there's some things in Islam that you can't get around. Like if we're talking about Quran and Sunnah, let's talk about Sunnah. The Hadith in many cases is synonymous with the word Sunnah. The collectors, the compilers of the famous and not so famous Hadith collections that we all know, they all follow the same thing that you telling us not to follow. Have any of you thought about that? I know I'm preaching to the choir, just in case for you who don't know, preaching to the choir is a phrase or an idiom when people are talking to other people who, for more or less, already agree with them. Most of you that are here, we know you kind of agree with us already. But think about it. The Imams who compiled the Sunnah in book forms, the ones we know about, they all followed madhabs. So wait a minute. You mean to tell me that you're saying we should not follow a madhab? We should follow the Quran and the Sunnah, specifically Bukhari and Muslim. Like he is in Bukhari and Muslim. Well, wait a minute. Imams Bukhari and Muslim follow a madhab. So following a madhab is good enough for those who compiled the books you're referring us to, but not good enough for us. Things that make you go, And you can go down the list with the other well-known imams in Islam from different fields of science or scholastic endeavor in Islam, and you'll find, hey, they follow madhabs too, but we shouldn't do it. So that's my introductory remarks. That false narrative is out there. And when we talk to people about fiqh, and we have to explain, because people already come into the discussion with preconceived notions that's already built upon falsehood. So before you can even get into the discussion, you have to understand that some people already think that the Quran and Sunnah and following the madhab are two different things. Like if you're following the madhab, you're not following Quran and Sunnah. It's the same way like when you're talking to someone about tasawwuf or Sufism, they already have a definition of Sufism in their mind. That it's other than Quran and Sunnah. It's other than Islam. It's an addition to Islam. It's an addendum. It's something that's been added later to Islam. They don't understand it the way you and I understand it. So you have to go back to basic definitions before you even get into the discussion. So when we're talking about I follow Quran and Sunnah, most people, when I say most, every Muslim is going to tell you that ultimately, at the core, they believe they are following Quran and Sunnah. But some of us, when we say we follow Quran and Sunnah, some of us mean that I have the right, the religious obligation to go directly to the Quran and the Sunnah myself, regardless of what qualifications I think I have or don't have. I think it's my right and my duty as a Muslim to go directly to the Quran and Sunnah myself. Too many of us think that. And that's a problem. Well, alhamdulillah. I pass it back to Imam Otis. And just so I can trigger him some more, let me show some more stuff. Let me show all this stuff right here.
Oh, it's glossy and colorful.
المكتبة الوهابية موجود عندكم. I'm having fun tonight. You guys are crazy. Is it my turn or Imam Faheem?
It's your turn.
No, it's your turn.
It's always your turn, Otis.
Okay. On a more practical level, I wanna address something, right? If we really think about this subject, this topic rather, excuse me, I follow the Quran and Sunnah. Let me ask you, because we want to engage. When you hear that, all of us in the thing, just quickly type, what comes to your mind when you hear someone say that? I follow the Quran and Sunnah. I want to take a poll quickly. There's a lot of people. We can get a nice poll. When you hear I follow the Quran and Sunnah, what does that mean to you when you hear someone say it? So it will take a few minutes to
you don't mind if I set it off, do you, man?
Yeah, set it off, my brother. Set it off.
Yeah. Whenever I hear people say that, it's almost they saying, I don't know what you on, even though I know you're a Muslim, but I follow Quran and Sunnah. You might be reading the Bible, or you might be reading something else, but I follow Quran and Sunnah.
Okay. You know, when I hear someone say that, Sister Haja Stacy hit it on the nose. When I hear someone say that, I understand from that, I teach myself. Right? I teach myself. That's what I understand when someone says that. I follow Quran and Sunnah. From that point of view, that's what I understand when the person tells me that. The first question I'm asked that person when someone says that to me, how do you follow the Quran and Sunnah? Right? That's the first question I ask. How do you follow the Quran and the Sunnah? Because the first question that would come to my mind when I hear that, and I want us to be fair when we're saying this. Let me take our sister down. All of us have to admit that we're not making up intentionally our understanding of Islam. Intentionally. Even if we're doing it, that's not intentional for most of us. There is some probably rare example of someone who's just on some mission. Most people get their understanding from somewhere, even if they end up teaching themselves. They got that understanding from somewhere. So the how becomes a serious question. Go back to Imam Naeem's pictures. So if that books that he showed, if that person got that idea, for instance, from Bilal Phillips, he ain't make it up. He don't know what the Quran and the Sunnah is on his own. He read that somewhere. He heard that somewhere. Somebody put that idea in his mind. Would we agree with that? That somebody put that idea in his mind? I like to dialogue in this because I want us to think our way through it, right? So if we agree that somebody put that idea, because he's not making up religion by himself, right? Then it's safe to assume that that person believes that whoever told him that, wherever he got that from, that person actually understood the Quran and the Sunnah in order to follow him. He had to have confidence in that person. You know, I believe you know the Quran and Sunnah, and if that's what you're telling me, that's the Quran and Sunnah. I think that's the disposition of most of us as Americans, especially African Americans. And that's why we go through, or we've went through so many different movements, because we trust here. Then as we learn, we discover maybe that wasn't what I thought it was. Then we'll go here, we'll discover. That's a process that we go through. I want to help us end that process. How do we end that process? By number one, identifying where we get our ideas from, right? And if we identify where we get our ideas from, that would help us, excuse me, that would help us actually clarify some of our misconceptions. Because a lot of times, many of us make things personal that's not personal. So it blocks the conversation. So the person is saying, you know, if you tell me I don't know or I'm mistaken, I take it personal, when actually the mistake may not be mine. It may be from where I took it, right? And then that puts a different look on something because it's not personal, right? Like I didn't get the right information. So obviously, if I didn't get the right information, I'm going to have ideas that are not necessarily correct. This has a basis. If you read Sahih Muslim, in the introduction of Sahih Muslim, there's a section in the introduction of Sahih Muslim that talks about the importance of the chain of narration, which is called al-isnad. There's this whole section in that, in the introduction of Sahih Muslim. So that means before you get to the actual hadith that are narrated in chapters, right, you're going to have some introductory remarks about the science of hadith, about different things. Among those introductory remarks is that section that deals with chains of narration. In it, there is a statement from one of the followers of the companions. His name is Muhammad ibn Sirin, the great Imam. And you've heard this statement before. He said, "Verily, this knowledge is the religion. So look well from whom you take your religion." Now, I'm not quite familiar. Maybe you are more than me, Imam Faheem. I'm not quite familiar with books of translation, like hadith books, because I don't read them. So I don't really know, did they translate everything? So in your copy of Sahih Muslim in English, is that statement in the book? Did you ever check?
No, I never checked. I had to go back and check it.
Would anyone know who reads an English translation of Sahih Muslim? Do you find that in that translation? Because I don't know how much they translate. I'm not familiar with that, so I really don't know. And as we saw from Bilal Phillips' cover, sometimes translators leave stuff out, make mistakes, translate wrong. All that happens. But maybe that's a question, someone who's familiar with the English translation of Sahih Muslim, is that in there? So maybe, because if I'm talking to you and you don't have access to Arabic, you're reading a translation and if it ain't in there because of the translator, you may think that we just making stuff up. So really understanding our sources becomes very important. So if someone could verify that for me in the English translation, that would be good. I just don't have one, so I really don't know. But my point is, it's in the introduction of Sahih Muslim. Under the section, the chain of narration is a part of the religion. So from that, that's important. So a lot of times the ideas that we got them from someone who the mistake was theirs, not ours. So research and having access to the material, to the books, to research is extremely important in how we understand things, right? So when I look at that statement, I follow the Quran and Sunnah. If I went back to my days of early Islam, I remember in 1989, I got my first copy of Sahih Bukhari in English, the 9 volumes, Muhammad Muhsin Khan. And I remember that was like, in those days, in the 80s, you had basically 3 books of hadith. You had the 4. You had the 40 hadith of An-Nawawi. You had the 40 hadith Qudsi. You had 5, Bukhari, Muslim, and Mishkat, right? These were the major books for one. See, Imam Naim got all the stuff, right? That was your hadith access in mostly English-speaking people. And depending what kind of money you had, you couldn't have all of that, right? Today, if any of you come visit Masjid Muhammad, right, and see just our section in hadith, you would say, wow, right? It's not a comparison. So we never really had access even to the Sunnah to actually even follow it. We never collectively, as a community, had access to the Sunnah to follow it in the first place. So our limited access of the Sunnah is part of the reason why we misunderstood the Sunnah, right? Our limited access to the Sunnah is part of the reason why we misunderstood the Sunnah. So for us, there's this need to have access. And then not only having access, but knowing the people who we got the information from and their level of knowledge and trustworthiness. Add those 2 things, their level of knowledge and trustworthiness. When you put that into consideration and you start to really use your brain, right, and critically think your way through this stuff, you start to say, wait a minute, the guy who's translating this from, the publishing house, the means by which we getting this information, who are they? Imam Naim indicated like how that can have an impact. Who's conveying this to me? And what are they trying to get? What are they selling me without me knowing it? Right? What ideas are they selling me? And a lot of this has political overtones that you're unaware of. The actual information you're getting has a political spin to it, but you're not aware of world politics. So you don't even realize what's being played on you. And when I say that, that's us collectively, because we're just the innocent person walking in the wrong neighborhood and getting knocked upside the head. That's us, right? You're just rolling in the wrong neighborhood. You didn't know. When we be honest with ourselves and start looking at things from that light, it's easy for us to fix it. So for instance, right? So for instance, it's important for us, and I'm trying to summarize, but I have so many things going through my mind at the same time, it's difficult. When we start looking at how we got the information, and then the ones who got that information, how did you get it? And we trace that back, that's that chain of narration, and we examine all the men, we're going to see the way we got the information is diametrically opposed to the claim we're making at the end of it. So if you say, how did I get this information? What was the route? The vast majority, and I'm going to say 99% of the narrators for the information from generation to generation to generation to which we got the information we have in our hands, all of them never use this statement. Ain't that deep? They all followed qualified expert legal scholarship in the form of a school of thought. Ain't that deep? 99% of the way we got the information we're talking about, the ones who conveyed it all opposed the idea of I, myself, as an individual, follow the Quran and the Sunnah, which means I teach myself. The vast 99% of the people who conveyed everything we're talking about oppose the idea, which is something to think about. But that's why when you hear this idea of I follow Quran and Sunnah, that idea is only used for the top level of legal experts only. Everyone else are following the deductions of those top experts. And they've convinced us that you have automatically, by a word, by a slogan, become a top legal expert. Man, when you think about being hoodwinked, and now put that in our community and realize why we never come up. I have some stuff I would love to talk about, but I can't, right? It would be too destructive. But they still running that game on us today. Even in our Sunni tradition, they're still running that game, and it's ultimately coming to the Black community. You know why? I'll give you an example. They're making leaders for us who in the classical sense would never be leaders. Did you hear that? They're producing like a factory, false scholarship, sending it to us as like equivalent scholarship, which couldn't be further from the truth, which is the height of injustice. So what they send back to us as sheikh or quote unquote student of knowledge, in the real context, that person's not even a beginner. How are you ever going to come up like that as a people? Think about that. How are you ever going to rise as a people if the way you get in your information is a lie, an ultimate deceit? Think about that. Just like, let's say, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Like, that's deep. The way you get in your information is a fabricated conspiracy to keep you down. And because of it, you'll never even seek access, let alone get it, because we're not giving it to you. We're actually giving you a false representation of Islamic scholarship. And that becomes the height of your vision. And all of the ones doing it know that this is nonsense. Ain't that deep? Think about that. Now, trickle that down to black people. I hate to say it, because just like economics trickle down, you know that, right? Education in the worldly sense trickles down to us. They did the same thing with Islamic knowledge. That's deep. I want you to think about that. Think about economic drop, where we at, the bottom, right? Even our biggest millionaires and billionaires, ain't that many of them, billionaires, and it definitely, compared to the amount of millionaires, it ain't a lot of us. Their money is controlled by the real billionaires. And it's designed like that. So we're only gonna let a few of you through, and if you ever get out of line, we're gonna break you down back to poor. I.e. Kanye West, i.e. Puff Daddy, we can go on and on and on, right? Quick. That same concept happens to us by way of false scholarship. At the end of the day, the one we're listening to that's having the claim of the scholars is not even a beginner student towards real Islamic scholarship. I want you to think about that. I'm going to leave that there because we'll come back and build on it. Because ultimately for us, we have to realize what's happening in order to even begin the change. And then we got to work on something else that they put on us, is laziness. Because it will seem like an insurmountable feat to fix it. Right? That's deep. So are y'all following this? It's kind of heavy, and I think it, you know, this is a crisis I'm going through right now, trying to function in the midst of lies. It's very difficult because it makes you angry when you really think about it, but that's not the purpose. We need to learn and get better, right? No one likes that someone lied to them, right? No one likes that at all. But unfortunately, we've been lied to. Let me just wake you up. We've been lied to. Now, let's discover the lies, how they lied to us, why they lied to us, and then let's overcome those lies. We have work to do. Okay, I'm finished on my part.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Yeah, that's a lot to unpack. But so as it trickles down to us in the basement, you know, so when we talk about how it affects our, you know, communities and the regular everyday people, just to get to some of the stuff that we was talking about, because there was someone who put something on social media, and you know, we often discuss these things about, you know, Asharis and Wahhabis and Salafis and the different things, you know, and it always seems like an attack. But there was someone who, you know, put something online that kind of, you know, prompted this kind of talk to discuss it. And so the post was, a brother sent it to me, and he said that he equated that the Ashari Salafi so-called wars, that they call it wars, which we know is just really clarifications and cleaning up the oil spills that came before us in the name of, you know, true Islam, so-called Salafiyah, right? He said that it's the equivalent. We traded the Tupac and Biggie beef with Ashari. We replaced Ashari and Salafi battles, so-called, with is similar to the Tupac and Biggie beef, you know. So he said the East Coast specifically, and you know, we're on the East Coast, right? So, and a brother sent that to me, you know, and I just want to share something why, for us, we take the Tupac position. Riverside, MF. you don't get the reference, Imam Amin?
I'm sorry. I was in the university.
Yeah, you was in another. Yeah,
during the
they played them in the university though.
Not in my university.
Oh well, yeah, you.
You know where I was at? Oh,
Yeah,
you get his Hillbilly Joe.
So I just want to present.
You was in a university when Juice came out.
Yeah, I don't know when Juice came out. When that came out?
That came in like '92.
And I was in the university.
Yeah. Okay, let me see.
The universities, they far off away from everything. You don't get nothing in those places.
Well, I know the state universities, we got all that.
No, not in the feds.
We got it late, but we got it.
Okay, I just want to.
You might get country music. That's about it.
Okay. So I just want to share something real quick. All right, can you all see that? Okay, so this is just a brief presentation. I just want to give you a visual. And so this is
based there goes the Imam of the boom back with his little bougie slides.
Right, to clarify. And so I'm just presenting this real quick. So there's just two things I want to share why we discuss these things. So this is in response to the person who said that we traded Ashari and Salafi wars, or whatever he said. I think he said wars. We traded it for it's the equivalent of Tupac and Biggie. And I'm glad he said Tupac and Biggie and not East Coast or West Coast. So that's the difference, So I only got two slides here. Oh man, let me go back. So look at this here. This is why we have to fight this stuff. So this person here that some people take as a sheikh, right? And he was asked a question, does Allah has two eyes? And so this goes back what to Imam Amin was mentioning. When they say they follow Quran and Sunnah, we ask, how do you follow Quran and Sunnah? And so when people who make these kind of statements, that's, saying Allah has two eyes, and I don't know if this person knows English or not, but in English, the word has means possession. The word has means possession, that you own something or you possess something. It's a part of you, right? Am I making it up? Or is that true? Like if I say I have these keys, I have this glass, that means I possess it. So this is the same meaning. Of course, Allah has two eyes. And so the way that they follow Quran and Sunnah without any training, without following the methodology and just taking the text literal and just choosing what they want, they come up with stuff like this, attributing to Allah body parts. He, the Almighty, has two eyes. Why yada billah. This is kufr. To believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is similar to creation. You see why we have to take this kind of stance? So they said because about the Dajjal, about it one eye, the Prophet ﷺ said, your Lord is not one eye. He means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free from any kind of imperfection. That's the meaning of it, free from any kind of imperfection. He got from his methodology of how he takes from Quran and Sunnah, which he takes from a certain strand of people, that Allah has two eyes. Now, this is not Photoshop. I didn't doctor this up. I just copied it and shared it with you. Of course, Allah has two eyes. And, I ain't even going to go into the monstrosities of how they say that he has all of these other things, which imply body parts. Now, whether they mean them or not, or what they understand is another topic. That's what the clarification is about. But this implication in enough of itself is not befitting of Allah's majesty. This is the fight we up against, because if you ask people who follow this Quran and Sunnah, dialogue, this is what they be saying. All right, and let me just show you one more. And then this, like I said, is very brief. Now, this is very important because this is closer to home. So I blocked out the person who shared this, but look at this statement here. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is attributed with al-wajh, right? And it's translated as face. See what he put here? He has a face, not like the face of the creation. So meaning he has some type of form like a face, but it's unlike what we know. So they're giving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala some type of form, some type of substance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jal is free and clear from this. Now look at this part. Taken from the Comprehensive Guide for the New Muslim by Anwar Wrong. Anwar Wrong. This is somebody that's right across the bridge from us. And this is somebody that is in the prison teaching these people this. This is a publication that they have for new Muslims. And this is what they're teaching them. And then to go even further, not to really make it a long drawn out thing, but why we fight, why we ride on them fools, cuz? Because they're teaching kufr, which they might not even know. And just to give them a part of an excuse. But this is kufr if you believe that Allah has a face, but it's unlike a face that we know. So they're giving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala something as a substance, a form, but it's unlike what we know. And then, you know, if you read deep into that stuff, they're saying they only mention what Allah says, you know, just underline the fact that they give an interpretation with their translation. Because this is not from the way of the Salaf to say al-wajh means that Allah has a face. And since they won't talk to us to have a clarification, we have to discuss it like this, you know, and maybe they will see it and they will open up the dialogue to have a discussion about this, you know. This is the stuff that they put in the book that new Muslims, this is not really their concern right away. This is what they're teaching these people, indoctrinating them. And you can imagine the type of dudes that's coming out of jail. You know, Allah has a face because he says in the Quran. So that was my little presentation, you know, why we have to fight against this, why it is like a, not a beef, but a clarification to, you know, remove these distortions in belief because of these people who say that they follow Quran and Sunnah. This is how they follow, because these people are just regular people. They're getting it from somewhere. They're getting it from a tradition that avoided following the methodology of the scholars that came from them, that is contained in the curriculum found in the four madhahib and the two schools of Aqidah, the Ashari and Maturidi schools. And as Imam Naeem mentioned earlier, in their books, they write up a whole way of why you should not follow that you can just go and pick from the Quran and pick from the Hadith. And another understanding that they have is that if the Hadith is authentic, then that's what you go with, the most authentic Hadith. And you'll find this in their writings, that Allah says this, the Prophet ﷺ said this scholar, this said this, and the most correct view is what they choose according to the most authentic Hadith that one person told them was the most authentic Hadith. Instead of a body of scholars who passed it down and revised the school and looked at each other's interpretations and outlooks and refined it and edited it and all of these things and made it as a curriculum. So this is why we fight against this stuff, you know, because these people are doing this. And yeah, time right on time. I'm gonna stop sharing. So I hope you all understand. I know our people here understand it, but for people who don't see it, this is the problem. Al-Wajh doesn't mean he has a face. It means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is attributable Al-Wajh, which we know that we should leave untranslated because these things are from the mutashabihat. These are from the mutashabihat, right? And you should just leave them as they are. This is the understanding that we do tafweed with these kind of attributes. We leave them as they are, and as the later scholars after the Salaf, they used to interpret them to make sure that an understanding like this is not taken. They would give ta'wil, you know. So this is why we ride on them fools. This is why, in essence, it is a war. It's a battle. You know, the battle to keep people from being subjected to this kind of stuff, you know. And so that was all I had.
I think part of Imam Amin, you wanted to say something?
I think this was a good time for a quick commercial. We have, and coming up, and I'm glad Imam Faheem, may Allah be pleased with him and raise his rank, put that up. We have a program coming up on the 28th that I'm going to touch these issues in a comparative approach with live examples from books, original sources, so you understand the whole way this is coming up. So this is going to be a series of lectures, learning Aqidah in a comparative approach. As the scholars, they said, things are made known by they become clear by their opposites. A lot of times, if you don't see everything together, you can be hoodwinked. So what we want to do is actually see how scholars approach different methods to explain to us the correct creed, with live books, with examples, with quotes, so you actually can write down, take pictures to see exactly what we're trying to convey, where we get it from, what they're saying, where they got it from, and how to navigate the subject. I think this is a very important series of lectures that you don't want to miss. So the first one is September the 28th, and inshallah ta'ala will, if you look on our website and everything, this will be up. You'll see it on our Facebook pages at Masjid Muhammad of Atlantic City. The fee is $60. There's a dinner included. And there you can scan the flyer. Share it, please. This is extremely important. We did a previous series of lectures called Understanding the True Creed of the Salaf. This one is going to bring it down to today and to all the past, inshallah. It's going to be extremely important. So please register, because it's not a free event. It is also a way that we raise money to keep the work going. So it's not a free event, but inshallah, you know, we want to give you something beneficial. At the same time, raise the funds to continue this effort, because it's needed, as Imam Faheem showed. All right, that was my commercial.
Now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Well, you know, we live in the era of social media. So like you on YouTube or something, right? And then a commercial come on, and then they give you the option to skip it sometimes. Now when you skip it, another commercial come on. So that's what just happened just now. So that's one commercial. The next commercial is how we looking on the bread.
When you have a lot of children, tornado brothers, then tornado sisters, everything is different, bro. It's not today's bread check is not like yesterday's. All that will be forthcoming. Have no idea.
Well, we do have an indication by the listening audience. You all know if you donated or not. So if you haven't, you know, let's get to it, inshallah. And then we have a report later. But really, it's important to help us to continue our work, you know, to reach this goal. And I just want to add real quick. There was a brother that I'll talk to offline, because many people reach us offline. And he said something very profound. He said that it's very sad that every week it seems as if you all are begging. And he didn't mean it in any kind of like any malicious way. He was just saying like how that we have to keep bringing it up, where, you know, at this point, well, we 4 years in now, 4+ years doing this roundtable, that it should kind of be automatically once we mention it, you know. And so we need to really get back to that. You know, we're not asking for a whole bunch of money. We're not asking anybody to, you know, write to Chicago with their check and all that kind of stuff. And we're not asking for no tithes, and nobody's going to call you if you didn't donate. Nobody's going to show up at your door. You know, this is in a manner, you know what I mean, that we hope that people will fulfill, inshallah. and to help us to remain free. Because, you know, if we really put it all on the table, man, it's like, man, we need to go and earn some bread, you know, and that needs a story that another spin-off story, you know, I don't know, I can't think of a title right now, you know what I'm saying? But it's like poverty's paradise for the black imams or something like that. Or, you know, we tweak it a little bit, but, you know, the struggles that we go through are really, really real because we're on the ground and in the mix every single day, you know, and a lot of stuff we kind of don't bring to you because we don't want to trouble people. We want to, you know, have a united, you know, presentation with you to help teach and to uplift and to motivate, you know, but, you know, these things are real. And you all know in your own lives, you know, how it is for a struggle, you know, how it is to maintain your living expenses and your living arrangements and all that stuff. So just imagine how it is for us, you know. So with that in mind, please try to donate generously. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala double and multiply your reward. Think about the gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in store for you. You know, if you donate for yourself and 2 other people or 3 other people. For some of us, and I'm really finding out that that's not difficult. I heard a story today. Now this is way off topic. I'm just saying real quick that there was a sister. She called me about some issues she was having, you know, with a spouse, and it wasn't really no issues, but the whole thing was, I said, well, what's the issue? She said that her husband was stingy, right? And she said she looked in this account, and you know, he had like 60 grand. So right, and I'm like, well, man, you know, I was like, well, should I call him? Tell me. Help me with the secret. You know, how's, you know what I'm saying? Help me get on. But I was just saying that there are people out there who got bread like that, you know, so to part with $10, $20, or even $100 is nothing, you know. And just think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showing you all the khair in this world, and he's definitely storing up something for you on for Yom Qiyamah to make your scale balance out, you know. So that's how we got to look at it every time that we're investing in ourselves when we're being asked to give, you know. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our scales heavy with good deeds. I mean, okay, I'm done.
I was really thinking about your slide that you presented to us, Imam Faheem, and it just really made me think of how, for a lot of us, we're just like black and white. We don't realize things have layers. Like, how common is it for us, on one hand, to know that the Quran and the Sunnah were revealed in the Arabic language? And then, like in the slide that you shown, for us to know that Allah is attributed with wajh. And then, right after that, come behind and say something like, Allah has a face. And for the speaker to not even recognize that wajh, face for wajh, face is only one of many definitions. It's not wajh equals face. Wajh equals face and a whole bunch of other stuff. That little part, that little nuance right there messes a lot of us up. We can't wrap our mind around that. But in the English language, that's not a problem for us. The same person. If I say, "Oh man, it's hot out here," depending on how I say it, how I inflect my voice, or what the temperature is, the listener, that same person who can't understand that wajh can mean a whole lot of stuff, he will understand, okay, he means the weather's hot. I can say the exact same thing, say, "Ooh, it's hot out here." And that same person that can't understand that wajh has many meanings, and some are appropriate to apply to Allah and some aren't, he will understand that I'm not talking about the weather. I'm talking about a heavy police presence. I can also say, "Oh, she hot." That same person will understand that I'm saying that that woman is beautiful. I can also say she hot. That same person will understand that she likes to have intercourse a lot. Same word, hot. I can say it's cold out here. Different word, cold. Temperatures low. Yo, he cold, yo. I mean, the person's callous. Also similar, no emotion. He just did what he did, didn't feel nothing about it. Cold. In our home language, we can understand this. But at the same time, because we have been shut off, we have been tricked into shutting down our intellect voluntarily. We don't understand that something similar is happening in the language of our deen, al-Islam, Arabic. Different words have different shades of meaning based upon the context of which is being used. But many of us have been taught that, no, I can only mean one thing. It got to be literal. When there are clear examples in the Quran itself, embedded within the Quran and the Sunnah, where we all agree that the literal understanding is not what's intended. Like, for example, when Allah revealed to keep eating and drinking until the white thread is distinct from the black thread. Many of us know the commentary behind that ayah. There was a companion who during Ramadan kept eating and drinking and kept waking up with two literal, one white thread, one black thread. You know, I can't tell the difference. So he kept eating. And it was real daytime. By the time he stopped eating, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, no, it don't mean that. It means from the white thread of dawn, right? And then there was an additional portion of that ayat revealed. Even in the Quran itself, Allah mentions that some verses are muhkam and some verses are mutashabi. Some verses are literal. You take the primary meaning. Other verses are not that. Sometimes it's translated as allegorical, meaning some things need to either be left alone completely. Allah said what he said, and he meant what he meant. We don't know what he meant, but we believe in whatever he meant. Or there needs to be given a proper interpretation consistent with the context, making sure that Allah is not made to be similar to his creation. All of that is really common sense. But we have been trained religiously to shut down our common sense, to not think. And a lot of this, what we talk about, if we just think, if we just really think, we will get out of this stuff. And if we just ignore people who just say things for likes and clicks and attention, a lot of people just like attention. A lot of people, if we weren't teaching what we're teaching, they wouldn't be saying what they're saying. They're right now, they're pretending they're not paying attention to us, so they could come out with a video or a post to attack us. And then at the same time talk about we need unity. Well, for me personally, you know how many times I see stuff on Facebook I don't agree with, and I just keep scrolling? Why can't you do the same thing? If you don't agree with us, why must you say something? And at the same time, you don't want to talk to us. You want to talk about us. Why is that? Why you can't control yourself? You don't want to have a conversation with us, but you want to have a conversation about us and then pretend you ain't talking about us. You know that's corny, right? That's real corny. Talk to us. Don't talk about us. That's all I need to say.
I want to say something about that, Imam Naeem, right? I really would like us to understand what we're talking about as a group, as a people. Then we don't have to debate. It's not a debate. It's a conversation. I was talking, I'm going to next week, let me give y'all a preview of what's coming up next week. Next week, we're going to have a conversation with he calls himself Salafi Athari. We're going to have a 2-hour conversation about one of the attributes of Allah with rules, time frame, and context. So in the discussion, the flyer will come out, right? In the conversation we had preparing for this program, we were talking about, should we have a conversation or a debate? So one of the things that was raised in that preparing for this discussion, that we shouldn't have a debate. A debate only occurs when all parties understand the topic that they're debating on. If they don't understand the topic, it's not a debate, it's a conversation that needs to be had. After we have an understanding through the conversation, if necessary, then we have a debate, right? There is no debate when there's not understanding. And understanding has several levels. Number one, understanding what we're talking about in the beginning, the topic. Number two, understanding the positions of the opponents on the topic. Both opponents understanding what their other is saying about the topic before we can discuss it. Like, here's the topic, all right, we understand the topic. Here's our opposition on the topic, and I need to understand your opposition, and you need to understand mine. Once that is done, then we can actually have a debate. If necessary, we still disagree. But at the first level and the second level, sometimes things can be cleared up and there's no need for a debate because it's a discussion and an understanding, right? So I think with us, a lot of times we just got to admit that we don't even understand what we're talking about, right? Sometimes we're having a conversation about something we don't understand. And because of our shyness to say, I don't know, we'll engage in something we know we don't know what we're talking about. And we could just say, listen, I don't understand it to this level. I only understand this much. And I need more clarity before I can continue the discussion. And when I say that we have to, when we look at all the context, we got to give each other that, right? Like, some of us think the sheikh is only to take a picture with him, not to actually follow him. But that's not the purpose of the sheikh. It's not to get a selfie with him. It's actually to understand what he's talking about, convey it. Now I'm having fun, right? That's me having fun. I think y'all been around me enough. I like to have fun sometimes, right? You're actually supposed to learn what the sheikh is conveying and not interpret it your own way and just use your selfie and your new ijazah to say you following the sheikh. No, stop it. That's a part of it. That's not it, right? Because I see people that, and it's the dangerous about the new ijazah stuff. If I can deviate for a minute. Listen,
no, come on.
Please,
No, come on.
Man. Give it
no,
to me.
Man. That's another 30 minutes.
Listen, just a little bit. Ijaza, for the blessing of ijaza, is not the same that you learned. Please understand that. Because we don't want to start another evil. Like flashing your ijaza as if you learned something, when you know you only got the blessing of a connection, which is good. Please don't make it more than that. Did everybody follow that? So when you get an ijaza, actually know what that ijaza is for. And if you read the ijaza, it tells you that there's conditions for this. Not for you to be like, you know, I sat with the sheikh and no. It's not an authorization to teach, my brother. You misunderstood. It says you're connected. To teach is another story. It's another level, which involves a whole lot more, right? So, but that doesn't take the blessing of the ijaza. It's a blessing, and it's for that blessing, but keep it in its context. Do y'all follow me? Did everyone follow that? Because we don't want a bunch of ijaza chasers, right? I just got ijaza and now I'm the man. No, you're not. You still got to study, right? You're not the man or the woman. You still have to study. And that takes a lot of years. That's not weeks. There's no such as a microwave studies. That takes a lot of studying. But that doesn't take away from the blessing of the ijaza. It's a blessing. Do y'all follow me? So, because we need to do that. We do need the blessing of connection, and we should promote it, and we should share it. But we still need to learn, right? There's a difference from hearing narrations as opposed to understanding narrations. And then there's another level of conveying narrations. So you have the hearing, that's good. That's one level. Then understanding, that's another level. Then actual conveying is another level. So let's not mix the levels. But every level has its benefit and has its blessing. Please. And I'll give you one guy. And I wonder, there's a group of these guys. They went to Azhar. See, you thought I was going somewhere else. They went to Azhar. They sat in the classes in Azhar with some of the great Sunni sheikhs. And now they're narrating those sheikhs, and those sheikhs were diametrically opposed to the ideas that they convey online. So they say, I was at Al-Azhar, and I sat with Sheikh so-and-so and Sheikh so-and-so, and I read, you was in the crowd. Stop it. You was in the crowd. And if the Sheikh knew you took his ijaza and was doing the stuff you doing with it, he wrapped that ijaza around your neck, right? Like seriously. Like it's appalling what is happening, and I said lying to us. You know daggone well that Sheikh don't approve of what you talking about. And you know daggone well you was in that class with 100 other people. And out of his generosity, he want everybody to get the blessing. He wasn't saying, no, you a Wahhabi. No, he was just, mashallah. And that's the Azhari sheikhs. He just give out. Don't say you was following that sheikh. Come on out. Stop. Stop it. Knock it off, as we say, right? Do y'all follow me? It's serious. Because then what would happen is we'll destroy the whole system of knowledge transfer. If we buy that stuff, the whole system of Sunni conveying of knowledge will be ripped apart by people acting like they learned and know daggone well all you did was listen to 99% of the stuff you didn't even understand, right?
Imam, a couple of years ago, there was a cat who was doing interviews saying he was in the car with 50 Cent when he got shot. And 50 Cent got on Twitter, was like, you lying. I mean, you know you like that. So this is an Islamic version of that?
Yeah, it is the Islamic. I'm gonna tell you what my sheikh said one day, right? We were talking about this whole thing. He said sometimes, because he's famous, and especially now he's in the West, so he's really getting famous, and people, he said one day we were sitting, he said, sometimes I listen to people talk about my father back at home. He said, and I sit there, I'm like, you don't know my father, right? Like, you don't know my father, right? But I hear him and I'm sitting, I said, you don't know my father. You don't. And that who you're describing, that's not my father. You did meet him, but you don't know him. That's the same thing with these fake ijazas. For the blessing, it's not fake. It's real for the blessing. But what you using it for? No, it's not for that. And it's not intended for that. And for people who know, those who know, those ijazas for them sheikhs, they don't even write that stuff down. Right? Do you know the sheikhs, for their real students who really study, who really got ijaza, they write that stuff down. What you studied, how much you understood, they got notes for that. That's not the same as the general ijaza for the blessing they give to everybody. It's two different things. And I actually witnessed the teachers write down what you learned, who'd you learn in this book, and they keep that as a diwan, as a register for who their students really are, because they do give the general blessing for the stuff. So let's not mix this up. And I repeat, that doesn't take away the value of the ijaza as a blessing. It is a blessing, and we need to convey that blessing and share that blessing, but not make claims. Share the blessing. Be proud that you are connected through trustworthy teachers to the Prophet ﷺ, but it's a whole nother science to actually understanding that stuff. And don't stop at the picture. The picture is an encouragement. The ijaza at the blessing level is an encouragement, but don't cheat future generations and acting like that's it. For none of us, we should do that, right? And I hope that doesn't, but I know us. We act like we was in the car with 50 Cent. You wasn't in the car with 50 Cent. Stop. As one guy said, and this is more close to us, you ever see that video online where they was on the stage and the guy got shot and the dude was making fun of him getting shot? And he was like, you ain't cut like that. You wouldn't know what to do if them bullets started flying. And you ain't really from the hood. You lived in the hood. And technically, even the guy on the porch is from the hood. Don't make claims, right? Did you see that, Imam Faheem, that show? So dude went off because he was like, you're not really from the hood. You live in the hood. But when we say from the hood, you wasn't on the block and you wasn't putting in no work, right? You was from the neighborhood, but you're not from the hood. And when we say you from the hood, it don't mean what you saying. You was on the porch. You wasn't in the hood. There's a difference. Or the guy who said, yo, we was rolling. No, you was the one on the block carrying packs. You wasn't rolling nothing, right? You wasn't the man. You wasn't in the big meetings. You wasn't holding, you was the dude that got caught in a conspiracy, right? You not the man. Stop. Y'all, sorry, my hood's coming out, right? You wasn't really putting in work. You ain't fooling nobody. You was on the case and you got caught up. You wasn't the man. If you get my point. So with the ijaza, you ain't the man. You ain't the woman. It's a step, right? I hope I'm clear. I don't know how I got there, but I see a lot of that, especially those Wahhabis talking about, I'm from Azhar. You got an Azhar degree and an Azhar hat. You not Azhari, right? You got an Azhar degree, yes. You got an Azhari hat and you got an Azhari jacket, but you not Azhari. I just, all right, I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. There's a lot of games in cap being played. Right.
It said Pitney Village outside tonight.
The Ijazah, the Senate go back through Muhammad Abdul.
Exactly. Oh, let me say that. Do you know the Wahhabis do have an Ijazah, right? This idea they don't have change. They have chains of narration through Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Yes, they do. And they can go and they learn fiqh, and then they switch fiqh to Aqidah. Those people before them know nothing about his Aqidah, right? But they switch in and it's a lot of cap going on. And so now you got these people, I got an unbroken chain, and they go sit. I've seen it multiple times. They go sit with the Sunni scholars, get Ijazah, and come back with their ideas, those crazy ideas that the scholar they got that Ijazah from doesn't support, and they spreading it. I learned from this. I sat in this session. I got my Ijazah in this. I got my, man, you a fraud. Right? You do have the Ijazah. I don't agree with that. I don't disagree. But that Ijazah, what you using it for, is a lie. No, absolutely not. And if you sat with the sheikh that you claim that Ijazah, he will refute your ideas. Right? He wouldn't accept. Sit with the sheikh, and the sheikh, you know what he believes, sheikh? He believes Allah sit on the throne in heaven, and Allah got two eyes. See what you get. That sheikh that Ijazah you showing, let the sheikh hear you say that. You go sit in that Azhari sheikh, who's a real Azhari sheikh, and you say that Wahhabi nonsense you talking, and see what you get. Cap. Right? I hate to be raw, but there's a lot of cap going on. Looking for it. And may Allah make you sit for 20 days on the floor to get one Ijazah. It's worth it. Just don't make claims. Oh, that's a good question. All right, y'all want to take some questions? All right. I don't know how I got distracted.
Yeah, because we over the 2 hour mark. We ain't going to no 3.
I can go on. I guess I'm trying to bring the guy who started all this stuff out, but he ain't biting. He don't want no smoke. Right? Right? Like he don't want no smoke.
You absolutely could go to 3.
Hey, remember, hey, Imam, Faheem.
As you go to the shores.
Imam Naeem, you wasn't there. But we met the individual always shooting shots at us, and we was face to face. He was humble as pie. Am I right or wrong, Imam Faheem?
You sure is right.
He was humble as pie. He'd be shooting shots all the time. Soon we face to face and have that, not the same kind of discussion. So keep, you know how they say, keep that energy out. Keep that same energy. All right, we go ahead. MashaAllah.
Yeah, one question that you want to.
Oh, we have a couple questions. So then a question. All right, let me shoot. This was to you, Imam Faheem, when you was talking.
What about when they say Allah is above the heavens? Yeah, it's the same. It's the same concept that they put in the law in the space and the location. Because when they say above the heaven, they saying like in a location. And this is the other part. What we mentioned, that translation is an interpretation. So istawa, as Imam Naeem was mentioning, it has a multitude of meanings. The question that we ask is, why do they go to the literal meaning with respect to Allah's majesty when these words can hold a number of meanings? And because of that, not all of them apply, and some of them apply. And so that's why the safest way is tafweed, that, that we say Al-Rahman al-Arsh istawa, that Allah made istawa over the Arsh. And what that means for Allah, we just leave it. We affirm the wording, we accept the wording as it is, and just leave it, and that's the difference between us and them. So it's the same concept when they say they make possession by saying wajh and ayn. An ayn means like, possession of limbs and body parts. when they say he's above the heavens, they saying like he's in a exact location, you know, and befitting his majesty. They think that they can justify by saying in a manner that befitting his majesty. But we believe that Allah, there is no K for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because in the manner that, when they say in the manner befitting his majesty, they're implying that there's a K for Allah, that he's above the throne, and some of them interpret it as sitting, you know, all of these kind of things. And, you know, wa'yadu billah. And, yeah, it's the same thing, you know, and we just stay away from that.
How is the average Black American Muslims supposed to navigate the madhab's fiqh understandings coming from no understanding in the first place?
Yeah, you're on mute, man.
I was saying, if Imam Naeem or y'all want to tackle it, I got my understanding of it too. It's on y'all. I'll wait. Or no.
Yeah, just to chime in real quick, I wouldn't say that you didn't have no understanding. You had some kind of understanding. It was just you weren't exposed to another understanding, and understanding that many of us had, as Imam Naeem was mentioning, this, that it was faulty, you know. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he told us in the hadith, Talabatul ilm faridatun ala kulli Muslim. The seeking, the acquisition of knowledge, going after it is a fard upon every Muslim. So if you understand and hearing these things, that you just have to seek, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open up the pathways of good for you. But knowing that, you know, for many of us, we've just been bamboozled. We've been deprived of access. And that's the first thing, admitting that. And stop thinking that these people who were teaching us and they had our best interests at heart, or stop assuming that they were learned in the first place because they knew some Arabic, or they went to a university, they went to an institution. Stop assuming that, you know. And this is the thing about when you learn proper knowledge, the first thing you learn before you learn knowledge is that you learn how to think. Or you're supposed to learn how to think when you learn traditional Sunni knowledge. You're learning the principles, what is impossible, what is possible, what is, you know, what is necessary. All of these things you are learning from the very beginning. And so then you know how to, you know, navigate. But if you had some understanding, but, you know, if you admit that understanding, which you say is no understanding, was some understanding that was flawed, then keep searching so that a better understanding will come, and Allah knows best.
My contribution to that answer is, at least from my perspective, within the last 2 decades, or at least decade and a half, you see the average Black American Muslim, if you just stand back and look, you see as time progresses, you see it already happening. The more exposure we have to it, the more you see us emerging from those bad understandings, as Imam Faheem said, because we do have an understanding. It's just an incorrect one, or partially incorrect, or a bad understanding. And this is why I always mention that, you know, I came from what we like to call a default Wahhabi understanding. I was a Wahhabi and didn't know it. We call default Wahhabi. Or what you call it, Imam, before the Shehu? Before the I like that. They got a ring to it. I had a pre-Shehu period and Shehu period.
That sounds like a book. That sounds like a book in the making, man.
Yeah. And if I was to write that book, woo-wee, that's another category.
Yeah, there you go. We waiting for a before Shehu. Before the Shehu. Kuntu Wahhabiyan.
So I think that, to answer your question, that it's a matter of what Imam Amin always talks about: exposure. A lot of us, we were not exposed to anything but that. But also, I would say, in addition to that, I think a level of sincerity has to come into play. We have to have the idea that, you know, oh Allah, you know, wherever the truth guides me, let me go that way. You know, we have to have that, because some of us, we made up our mind. Oh, Allah, I believe this is the truth, and I'm not leaving from what I am on right now. So it's not really like a sincere request or supplication to be guided towards the truth. Or Allah, make what I believe and understand right now, make that the truth, right? It's two different things. And so a lot of us, you know, we're not, you know, we're not open to change. We want the truth to be what we understand and believe right now. And if new information comes to us that contradicts what we already understand, we try to alter the new information instead of altering ourselves and our understanding. So that's my contribution to the answer of your question. I think it's happening. It's just, I think it's a matter of exposure and really just being sincere and just taking the shackles off your brain. Just think critically in the same way we think about everything else that doesn't have anything explicitly to do with the deen when it comes to work or making money or in our profession or our skill set, whatever. We think critically, we figure stuff out. We need to do that with Islam too. Don't just close the intellect. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, Imam, I know you say you have this, you know, you want to give some final statements before we go? Because I think I want to jump in. It might take me another 45 minutes.
I ain't got it in my head.
That's what I'm saying. No, because I really want to address some things. I don't want to leave us hanging.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I do got to run to the listening audience. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. I don't have any closing statements. You know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us all in our support of each other and our love for each other and our dedication to each other for his sake. So I do got to cut out. Please excuse me, my fellow imams. You know, I love you, brothers. And I'll see you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum.
wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Imam.
So I want to address that question because he have a next part to it, but I understand what he's saying. Number one, and I say context because you said Black American Muslims. Even though let me say it this way. We got to keep it real. We're not Arabs. We're not Pakistani. We're not Bangladeshi. We're not Yemeni. We're not Africans in the sense that we grew up in Africa. We grew up in America in a certain context. Yes, by lineage, we go back to Africa, but they made us a new people. Like it or not, that's real. And all of us have a context. Please don't forget that when you become a Muslim, because many of us did. We learned, we went overseas, and we forgot where we came from. And when we came back a different type of indoctrinated creature. And some of us, it took us decades to wake up. I'm one of them. Be fair. I'm one of them. It took us decades to wake up and say, hey, this is some nonsense, right? That's a hard pill to swallow. To spend your time, your life, your money, learning. Then as you develop, realize, wait a minute, this is cat. That's hard. It's not easy, right? So for us, this ain't our problem. We inherit someone else's junk. Keep that in your mind. All this stuff, somebody's projecting on us. We're trying to find salvation. That's our default setting. So if we go into some wrong stuff, it's not because we bad people. It's not because we're not intelligent. We only can deal with what's in front of us. As as new things come in front of you, you need to examine and adjust to new information. That's life. Do you understand my point? That's life. So the way of navigating things is at each stage of your development in knowledge, you're going to be confronted with information you didn't understand yesterday or 10 years ago. You have to be able to adjust. And here's where your pride and your arrogance got to take a back seat to your intelligence, right? You will be wrong. So will I, so will every human being that walked the face of the earth, going to discover new things in life as they live. That's just the way the world works. That's the Sunnah of Allah in His creation. You're going to discover things. The more you live, the more you experience, the more information, the more access, you're going to learn things, right? Your job, when that occurs, to adjust according to your knowledge. That's one step. So for us, there's going to be some painful realities we're going to face as Black American Muslims. And the sooner the better we face them, the better we can move up the ladder, right? Some of us still think that people really got our best interests. You're deluded. You are deluded. I'm going to tell you straight up, you're deluded. If you think, I'm not talking about every individual. We're talking collective now, right? We're talking collective. Collectively, there is a concentrated effort to keep us down. That's undeniable, except to someone who just want to walk through the world with blinders on. That's obvious. Unfortunately, even in our Islamic context, that exists. Not Islam. Islam teaches against it. But human beings are human beings. That's it. It's life. I don't know what to tell you. And the sooner you realize that, the better off you'll be. You won't take it so personal. You'll be like, these human beings, right? That doesn't deny truth. It's just these are human beings. Human beings do stuff. That's life. And you have to separate Islam from human beings trying to practice Islam. There is a difference, right? There's a difference, right? So you walking around and thinking that all Muslims live the reality of Islam. That's not true. Muslims are striving to live the reality of Islam. But as a Muslim, we face culture, we face society, we face everything everyone else faces. And sometimes we're impacted by that stuff, right? If I were to open up, just really talk, I would be like, this guy, man, why is he spilling all the beans, right? Like, because I know what goes on. I've been around enough, and I've been at the upper echelon of the Islamic politics, and I know what goes on. And I know behind the scenes. I know a lot of stuff. I'm saying for us, we be victimized by that stuff, and we just don't know it, right? That's just real. That's why you notice people don't come bothering me, right? Not face to face, because, hey, I'm a realist, and I know. Stop. I'm not the one to tell that to, right? And I say that because many of us weren't granted access. Some of us are still fanboys. And we watch stuff, but because we're such a fanboy, we won't call a spade, even though we see it. I just want to be in the door. I know you want to be in the door, and you'll tap dance and do shine, do the dance and smile, do black face. Even though you black, you put on another black face, right? Like, I know, right? We shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to do that. The Prophet ﷺ didn't come to teach us to do that. You know daggone well you being used. You know daggone well they treating you inferior. You know it. You understand it. You see it. But then you come around, you know, I'm in the club. You ain't in the club, Negroes. Go sit your butt down, right? You know better. But some of us, we've been down so long, we want to feel like we up instead of really being up. We've been down so long, we want to feel like we up instead of being up. Nah, man, get up for real. Forget all the fake feeling like we up. Get up. You know, come on, man, stop. We can't afford to give that to the next generation of Black children. We can't. So the same fight we have in the West against Mr. Charlie and his forces, we got that same fight within our deen, unfortunately. It's sad, it make you want to cry, but it's real. And we better get with reality, right? We better get with reality. Because this question in and of itself is a crime to us. This question in and of itself is a crime. You know why? In every country in the world, mark my words, do your research. Even Saudi Arabia, this is not a problem. Only amongst us. In every country that has a culture, they have a madhab. Do you realize that? Every Muslim culture, people that have a culture have a madhab. Do you realize that? That's a question. Do y'all realize that? In every single country where there are people who have a culture, they have a madhab. We come to us and it's dominant among us that people don't even know these basic things about Islam. That in itself is a crime. Do we really realize this? That's deep. If you go to name a country where they have a culture and they accepted Islam, because all of them are converts, right? Everyone converted to Islam, right? Every single one of them have a dominant madhab in their land. And it ain't, I don't follow a madhab. And it ain't, I follow Quran and Sunnah. Even Saudi Arabia. So how does it get to our community and we don't have no madhab? Every place that you go, there's a dominant madhab. Any country where there's a culture and people that receive Islam, they have a madhab. Shouldn't I tell you something's wrong here? I'm just like critically think your way through this process. That don't make sense. How come everywhere in the world, this is the process, and when it came to us, we like got something totally different? So that means we have to rebel. Something ain't right. We have to fight back. This ain't cool. So coming from a place of no understanding about the religion, then it's our job to fix that. That's our job. No one's going to do it for you. They haven't done it for you. Wouldn't we have this conversation if they did it for us? So that means we got to do it. Listen to what I'm saying. No one's going to do it for you. You have to do it. If someone was going to do it, we wouldn't be having this discussion. You know how long we've been having Islam in our communities? It should be dominant by now. That means someone ain't doing us right. Period. I have no problem saying it. I have no problem saying it. Because I would say, okay, let's examine your community. Let's examine your resources. Let's examine your culture. Let's examine your chains of narration. Why is it good for you when it comes to us? Don't cause no fitna. Explain that one to me. Why is it good for you and your people, but when it comes to my people, all we can be is servants of someone else? That's our status. We have to refer to you. Why? But you never refer to us. We don't have enough knowledge. In fact, you take our masjids. And if you can't take it, you move out and go start your own. And then come to our neighborhoods, deal with our politicians, deal with our systems, put businesses, and run us out. And never build us up to scholarship, to mufti, to this, to that, to big mega masjid. Why? I thought we all brothers. Now I'm being honest. Hey, listen, it hurt, but let's speak the truth. I see it. So I know it firsthand. I know it firsthand, the level of racism and bias and unfair treatment to the Black Muslim American. I know it firsthand, and I can call it, I can point it out, and I say it to the face of the ones who do it. I'm not the one. I'm not one of those imams who are going to sit there, yes, boss. No. And that's why I say it's important for you to support our work so we don't have to tap dance. Because there's many of us that watch the injustice, but we're so used to being slaves. Our mindset, we only gangster when it comes to each other. But when it comes to somebody else, coward. Sit down and know your place, boy. That's real stuff. I hate it, especially when you challenge us, who's trying to help you, but you get in front of those others and you bow your head like a coward and you get on your knees. I have to be honest. And you know the first thing they say? Be a sheep, calm down, don't roar like a lion. No, roar like a lion. Beat your chest and have some dignity and pride as a human being that Allah created you. Don't always feel inferior. That'll give it to our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren. Our ascendant will be a chain of people who just bow to others. We're supposed to bow to Allah. That's a man. Don't make us. I hate it with all my heart. Because guess what? Had we done this work, we would run this country like everybody run their country. We fought, we died, we suffered, so everyone else can come rule over us. Is that why we did all? That's what we're going to tell all of our forerunners in struggle, that we became just to be mental, spiritual, religious slaves. That's what we did. That's what they fought for us to be like that. That's what the struggle they did, and change it to someone else would be the representative of Islam while you remain silent. It's disrespectful to all the struggle of Black folk in this country. It's horrible that we even apologize for feeling the way we should rightfully feel. But we'll apologize. We'll say, I don't want to offend you. I'm sorry, while they stomp you. I'm sorry. I pray that I never be like that. And I know the feeling because I was like that. I didn't realize I was like that. But they're so merciless sometimes, the way they do stuff. They woke me up. They woke me up. I remember this young, I got to tell you this and I'll stop. A person said to me, my masjid has 70 years of struggle to lift up Islam in America. 70 years, the masjid I'm the imam of. 70 years of African-American Black Muslim leadership, 70 years. Through struggle, through learning, through coming up. We weren't always Ahl Sunnah. We went through all the stuff. 70 years, Black leadership. And some young kid who studied overseas for a certain time, got some money, says, why don't y'all become our sister organization? I wanted to smack his face. I ain't gonna lie, except that I love him, I didn't. You tell me 70 years of struggle, you wouldn't even be Muslim if it wasn't for our fighting. And you tell us to be a sister organization? And it wasn't meant harmful. That's just how they think about us. Think about that. Y'all don't have no money. Y'all ain't rich. Y'all ain't, we got to wake up. And if we don't, we're going to say that same story. Why you don't have no understanding? Because we ain't wake up yet, right? We did it. If you study our history, the biggest thing we did when we became Muslim is forgot our history as Black people. Forgot our struggle in education, in religion, in everything we did as Black people to overcome white imperialism and colonialism and oppression and Jim Crow and slavery and everything we overcame. Soon as we said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, we threw all that stuff out the window and became slaves again. Seriously. We forgot everything we learned as a people. And now we starting fresh again. That's something. And listen, have a real Imams Roundtable where Imams who really in the struggle, and they'll tell you, we fought, went on a run, went to prison to preserve our masjids, and now those masjids are ran by foreigners. Our Imams are in the Islamic old folks' home, not supported, not given a healthy retirement and a nice pension for all the hard work they done for decades. And the foreigners come and take over that masjid, and your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren are disenfranchised. And that's something we should smile about while we sit talking about I'm on the Sunnah. The Sunnah is to preserve generations of families. That's the Sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ, when they came to him, he teach them, said, go back and teach your people. That's the Sunnah. That's the Sunnah. And we see it all around the world, but when it came to us, forget the Sunnah. Forget us. Man, no, we have a right. We should go back to the rap music sometimes in our mind. I have a right to be hostile. My people are being persecuted. That's how you should feel. And if you don't feel that way, and no one cares that you feel that way, there's something wrong with our understanding of Islam in the first place. Islam is not for the elite. Islam came to uplift the disenfranchised, the underserved, the poor, to uplift their status, not to remain being oppressed and injustice to them, whether it is physical, mental, spiritual, religious, cultural, economic, educational, you call it whatever you want. That's not what Islam came to do. And it's our job to learn our deen well enough that we overcome this stuff. And Allah knows best. I hate to go so long, but I don't hate to go so hard. I wish I could go harder, but I don't know if many of us can handle the truth. So I tone it down. But definitely I don't accept. Allahu Akbar. All right, Imam Naeem. Before I get myself in trouble, let me pause. Subhanallah.
Did you answer the second part of nobody's question like
What
you
was
intended?
the second part? I didn't even see it. I'm so disturbed that we got to ask the first part. Right? Like,
He said, no, I mean people who accept Islam upon La ilaha illallah have no understanding beyond that. Whose interpretation should they choose?
They have to learn. They can choose it. They have to be exposed. We have to expose them. We have to teach them. And we have to be brave enough to teach them. And listen, and we have to have dialogue. We have to have dialogue. We need this. Listen, the worst among us are the Rodney Kings among us.
I agree.
The Muslim Rodney Kings, the Black Americans, Muslims who just want to be in the good eye of their oppressor. That's the worst part of us. So the guy who say, let's not talk about Aqidah. What do you mean? We need to know our religion. What do you mean we shouldn't talk about Aqidah? We're too stupid to have a real conversation. We can't dialogue on an intellectual level to distinguish between ideas and concepts, truth and falsehood. We're not capable of that. We have to be a people that just blind follow. Didn't you say blind following is haram? Why you want me to blind follow then? Why you don't want me to examine the evidence? You say, what's your proof? Well, I can't get no proof if you don't give me none. If you don't let me have a discussion, you just want to dominate the airwaves with your ideas and never let them be challenged. And then here's the worst. Some of these guys are on people. They learned, they studied, and they in the business. I don't want to talk because I don't have money. And if I stick with you guys, I'm going to be broke. So let me go talk to the boss and let me say what the boss like. And let me not, I know he's wrong, but we got to, come on, man, we don't want to cause no fitna, you know. Yeah, I know you a sellout. I know. Yeah, I do know. I do know. And that's why you hanging around him, because you want a little trickling of the dunya. And you don't trust your people enough. And I understand that feeling. You don't trust your people enough. And you don't trust Allah enough, bigger than your people, that, man, I've heard him say it, man, these Negroes ain't gonna give no money. So what? Allah is Al-Razaq. Allah is Al-Ghani. Allah is Al-Wahhab. Allah is Al-Kareem. Why are you gonna tap dance just to get a little piece of the dunya? And you know it's wrong. You study, you know the truth. Oh, we gotta be wise, we gotta be clever, we gotta be avoiding the truth. That's what you're saying, right? Because you've been nice and you ain't got nothing done. In fact, you in the ranks of the ones that's oppressing us, smiling at their meetings. Here you go, boss. Look what I'm in. I'm inside. Yeah, you inside. You right. You inside. Now, when you going to reveal the truth? I'm strategizing. I got it. I'm telling you, in 30 more years, when I'm dead, your great-grandson going to have to figure this out because I'm not telling them. Right? Honestly, be honest, man. We know. Let's have a real talk. Let's talk in private. What are we talking about in private? Oh, you want me to conspire with you, right? Just in secret between me and you. I know, but they too stupid to know. We can't really tell them, just between me and you. We went overseas. We studied with the sheikhs. We got our chains of narration. You know what I'm saying? We know. Come on, bro. Nah, I ain't with it. You go do that yourself. In fact, you be around me, I'm going to expose you. Stop. Nah, man. We got to do it. It's a must. And those who are listening that are not African-American, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility. Because you know what I'm talking about. You might put a painting on it, like sometimes you know what's going on. You in the meeting, you know what's going on. You know what's going on. You in the meeting. You in the gathering. You see it. You go to the gathering and say, dag, deep down in your soul, you say, dag, I wish we could do this in our neighborhood. While you smiling. But inside, deep down, you saying, dag, I wish we could have this. You can, if you stop doing what you're doing and go work in your communities to build your people. And the ones who are having that big party, if they're your brothers, they should come help you build. They shouldn't leave you to feel like that. And they shouldn't be comfortable that you feel like a guest in Islam. A guest. That you don't feel home. They shouldn't be comfortable that you feel that way. And they should use their resources to help elevate you. If you go to the story of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu and Bilal, everyone likes the stories. Bilal was in the position of a slave. And when Abu Bakr came to free him, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, what was Bilal's concern? Are you freeing me for Allah, or are you freeing me to serve you? If you're freeing me to serve you, leave me as I am. And Abu Bakr was that man, radiallahu ta'ala, as-Siddiq. I'm freeing you to worship Allah, and to the point that you're going to be elevated so much that he eventually end up on the Kaaba when Islam got its opening. Bilal. That's how serious they were. You went from a rock on top of you to standing on top of the pillar and Qibla of the Islamic direction and movement around the world. Every time we think about the elevation of Islam, we're going to remember a black man too. And they were Arabs, and they had dignity and honor and pride and all that. But the Prophet ﷺ said, nah, we ain't doing that. Bilal, ascend. Bilal, ascend. Where is that feeling for us? It ain't racism. Actually, racism is what's occurring to us. Because as they say, you got to be empowered to practice racism, and we definitely ain't empowered. But the ones who are in power, who have the resources, who use our struggle to get in that position, that's another story. And maybe I'm not going to win an award, and maybe I might get kicked off the stage. But if I wake you up, and I wake me up, and I wake our children up, maybe we'll have a stage we won't have to worry about getting kicked off. Maybe we'll have a stage where we're respected. Maybe we'll build a stage that others respect. You know, I see some stuff that really disturbs my heart. As I tell my family, I'm going through an Imam Ghazali moment, right? You know, Imam Ghazali got to a point, he saw so much, he said, man, this is cap. He went in isolation, right? I'm seeing that. I'm watching the stuff, and it's not cool. I'm tired of watching us beg for dignity, and we're supposed to be Muslims. You know, we got to do our own stuff. Not against nobody, but we have to raise our status and understanding so we can have dignity in our deen and then confront the world with some honor. That's what Islam brought you. Islam didn't make you a slave. To Allah, yes, but to al-makhluqeen, to the creation, no, absolutely not. May Allah make it easy for us. We got to close out. We went way over time. We don't have any more questions, do we?
Yeah, you do.
What are they?
How would a new Muslim navigate when the majority of their community is of the Salafiyah? I think Imam Amin kind of like answered it just now. How the new Muslim will navigate? I think the new Muslim, number one, has to keep his heart sincere for Allah and not like just seek to be down. And go back to what Imam Amin said. Got too many Rodney Kings amongst us. We got too many people who personally have the right understanding of Islam, but they don't feel like it's their responsibility to teach that proper understanding, that proper belief, that proper fiqh, that outward practice, and that proper spirituality. They think is just personal for them and their family, but they don't feel no communal obligation to share it with their people. And that's a big problem amongst us. Ever since I, left that default Wahhabism, I've been seeing so many people who are quite content on everybody around them being off what they just left. Allah guided them, but they don't ever feel no personal responsibility to reach back and say, hey, just like Allah opened my heart and exposed me to the truth, let me share it with some other people. They don't have that. They just like, well, I'm cool, just me and my family, and that's it. I think those people, there's too many people like that among us, and that's a sickness among us. Because like as Imam Amin says, they're dominating the airways. Even if you don't physically live in an area that's dominated by them, you do a Google search on any Islamic topic, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be one of their websites. And so we're inundated. It's pervasive, this bad understanding of Islam. And that's not going to change unless those of us who even know a little bit just know our limits and teach what little bit we know. Relate for me, even if it's one thing the Prophet ﷺ said, one verse. So this is extremely important for us. The grassroots have to be mobilized and not like arrogant and think, okay, I'm Sheikhul Islam. No, you just Sheikh of Wudu. You learn how to make wudu right. Teach someone else how to make it. You learn the necessary attributes for Allah. You teach that, and you stop where your knowledge stops and pass them on to someone else when they understand all that you have to offer. We have to be like that as a community. So, there's no easy, we're human beings, everybody's not going to respond, but our job is to convey the message and try to make it clear. And whoever responds, they respond. Whoever doesn't, then, we keep them in our dua, in our supplication. So that's my answer to that.
I will also say that how the new Muslim going to navigate, expose them to Sunni, African-American Sunnis. Expose them. Like, you see this platform, share it, spread it. Unapologetic Sunni Muslims. That doesn't have to have hate. Listen, there was a time in my life I used to hate Salafis, Wahhabis. I don't say Salafi, Wahhabi. Today, especially from us, I feel sorry for us. I'm like, man, they did a number on us. They did a number on us. I'll give you an example. I told you it's going to be a long night. Everybody that comes from Saudi Arabia for the last 20, 30 years, graduates from the University of Medina and all that, when they come to our community, they talking that nonsense, I follow Quran and Sunnah. Back in Saudi Arabia, their whole country is ran by the Hanbali madhab. They're great scholars, all the kibar ulama, all teaching Hanbali fiqh. They have their opinions in the school and all that. But in general, the rule, Hanbali fiqh, they ain't even teaching us the Hanbali madhab when they come back. Ain't that some deep stuff? The Saudis got their whole system, volumes of books, explanations, commentaries, generation after generation of Hanbali scholars and biographies and commentaries, usul al-fiqh, all that stuff. But when they come to us, they don't even give us that. They send these guys, they tell us, I follow Quran and Sunnah. Enough, you should have had a madhab by now. All of their great scholars tell them you must follow a madhab if you're not a scholar. And all of them say we students of knowledge. Why are you not following the madhab? Your scholars, the great ones, Bin Baz, Ibn Uthaymeen, Saleh Fawzan, and we could keep naming, Muhammad bin Ibrahim, Ibn Qasim, all of those leaders of the Wahhabis were all Hanbalis. So you're conveying from the sheikh and the kibar of the ulama, and in there they're teaching the books. Why, when you got to us, you skipped us on that? Had they just did that and been fair, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We would have been, as a people, let's give, people been coming from Medina University for like 40 years, minimum, at least 40 years, right? We would have, as a community, black, because they was in the community, they in the hood, they don't let them go in them suburban masjids, they send those Negroes right back to the hood. You in the hood, we would have learned, let's take Hanbali fiqh. What are the main books in Hanbali fiqh that are taught in Saudi Arabia? Zad al-Mustaqni, Dalil al-Talib, Umdat al-Fiqh, Umdat al-Talib, Rawdat al-Marbi', al-Muqni, al-Kafi, al-Mughni, al-Insaf, al-Iqna', Muntaha al-Iradat. All of those books in 40 years would have been taught in America in the black community. Why wasn't it done? Some of you like, what the hell is he talking about? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's a crime. That's what's being taught in Saudi Arabia. That's what's in their masjids. That's all over the kingdom. Why, when it comes to the black community, we didn't get that? And all of our people went and studied in University of Medina. And it's their professors and their graduates and their universities that's teaching that stuff. Why, when it came to us, we don't have it? You don't think that's a crime and that's a conspiracy? Think about it. In 40 years, we would have had our own scholars by now. You could have took the whole Hanbali curriculum in 40 years, in fiqh, in usul al-fiqh, all the details, all the sciences. We could have our own Hanbali muftis by now. And even if that was our madhab, Hanbali school, we would have had a structure. Think about that stuff. There's a crime. Think about it. It's a crime. And they should be brought up on charges. It's a crime. But guess what? We still walking around talking about Quran and Sunnah, and they laughing at us. They be like, these Negroes, man. That's why Donald Trump is so welcome. He's like, thank you for giving us slaves. We appreciate it. You can come in and Kamala Harris gonna get treated better than you, right? Welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you for giving us slaves. You know, they abolished slavery physically, but we got them mentally. Thanks, thanks, thanks. Man. That's what we need to do, rebel. It's a shame.
For the cause said, Imam Naim, it doesn't seem like you ever was influenced by Wahhabism. Give us an example of your default Wahhabism.
Good, put all those books. Good, bring your library. For the Khan, you better start paying attention to the round table. There's all this Wahhabi signs. Look at that. Come on, bring more books, more.
I give you a practical example. Before the Shehu, if you were to ask me to teach you Aqidah or Tawheed, and I was an active teacher before I was Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'at, so I'm not speaking hypothetically. If you were to ask me to teach you the proper belief, I would have said, okay, class, first thing you have to understand is that Aqidah is divided into 3 sections. Tawheed, Ar-Rububiyyah. Class, write it down. This is oneness of Allah's Lordship. Then I would have said the second category is Tawheed or Uluhiyyah, oneness of Allah's Godhead. Then I would have said Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, oneness of Allah's names and attributes. And everything that comes along with that categorical breakdown and the definitions behind it and what those things are against, I would have taught that. So that's a practical example of my default Wahhabism. Well, in my mind at the same time, right? Historically, I knew what Wahhabis were, right? I knew who Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab was and his movement. I was against that. At the same time, the so-called Salafi movement, they were Wahhabis, but they called themselves Salafi or Da'wah to Salafiyya at the time. They was popping on the East Coast, and I was against them too. You see how you could be a default Wahhabi, but in your mind think you against them, but at the same time teaching Islam that comes from them and nobody else Ahlus Sunnah teach that. I was a perfect example of that. So that's a prime example of that.
And here's the thing. Everybody who studied the Salafi madhab, their main books that they study at the beginning, first level, are the books of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. It's like we're so like the first level when they study, the first level of books that all these great scholars you talk about, all the ones that cause so much fitna in our communities, those Saudi scholars who were the sheikhs of those brothers and sisters that were sent back, the first level books they learn are all the books of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. All of them. And here's the catch. They all got commentaries and explanations on them, and they're just in Arabic. So the guy sitting in front of you translating Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab's book, and we don't even realize that that's Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, and that's that Wahhabi doctrine, and the same stuff. They done pulled the wool over our eyes so bad, like no, the sheikh said, okay, what is the sheikh talking about? He's quoting Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab's books directly. You just changed the name. Sheikh so-and-so, Sheikh so-and-so, some kid that the same age as the brothers that graduated was in the same classes with them. He's the sheikh now. That one's a deviant, but he's your sheikh. And you, come on, man. It's a mess. This stuff's a mess. But if we just learned to critically think, we'd have discovered all this stuff. But no one taught us to critical think. No one taught us to change. That's why we still fighting for justice in this country. We see what's happening, but the same game keep getting played, keep getting played. We got to fix it. We have to do that. No one's going to do it for you. So you need independent, funded by us, your own people who got guts. Because I know people, and I'm not going to put y'all on the spot, so don't get nervous, don't run. I know people right here that know exactly what I'm talking about that wouldn't dare say what we say publicly. They know exactly what we're talking about, but they wouldn't dare publicly say it. They right with us right now. I'm glad you're with us. But what I prefer, one day you start speaking, because don't make it look like this is the black imams, them radical imams. Nah. Why don't you start speaking up? So therefore, it's enough of us, there's critical mass, and we can start changing stuff. Part of our struggle is that you're silent. And you know what the Salaf said about that? As-sakitu anil haq fi wajhi al-batil shaitan al-akhras. The one who remains silent in the face of falsehood is a tongueless devil. Man anta ya habibu. Man anta ya habibi. Hal anta shaitan akhras? Who are you? Who are you? Are you a tongueless devil? Let's keep it real. You could help us. You don't have to talk like me. You don't have to talk like Imam Naeem. You don't have to talk like none of us. But can you please talk? You don't have to talk like me. I'm too loud. I'm too this. He's too aggressive. I'm a little guy. I'm not a big guy. Right? I'm not a big guy. You a big guy. You got muscles. What you scared of? Right? I'm a little dude. Right? You a big dude. You a big dude. Right? How May say, you a big homie. You a big dude. Why are you scared? You a big dude. I know the muscles is only for the gym, right? Allahu Akbar. So that's how we solve that problem. Stop being silent. You don't have to be like us. You don't have to be so loud. You don't have to be so hostile. You can be humble Sufi guy, but just say it, bro. Sufi said it for generations. Want me to show you a bunch of them? Imam al-Qushayri, he said it. Imam Junaid, he said it. Hath al-Muhasibi, he said it. Ibn Ata'Allah, he went to the prison where Ibn Taymiyyah was at and went to debate him. He was a great Sufi. You quote him, you read al-Hikam. He went to the place where they was arrested Ibn Taymiyyah to debate him. Ibn Ata'Allah Secondary. They did it. As Subki, he was a great Sufi. He did it. Ahmed Rifai, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, they were Sufis. They still did it. What's wrong with you? They're Sufis. Sheikh Al-Bouti was a Sufi. He did it. Muhammad Alawi al-Maliki was a Sufi. He did it. Sheikh Ali Jumwa is a Sufi. He did it. Habib Umar bin Hafid is a Sufi. He do it. Want me to name some more Sufis? Sheikh Samir is a Sufi. He do it. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Why you can't do it? To your level. You can do it. And I guarantee you, if more of us did it, this whole thing would look different. This whole thing would look different. This whole thing would look different. And our children and great and grandchildren and great-grandchildren deserve it. They deserve, it's their right that we do it. But we don't gotta hate nobody. We just gotta tell the truth. At least make it accessible. Okay. Sheikh Abdullah al-Harari al-Habashi, he did it. He was a Sufi too. Okay. You happy now? Didn't leave nobody out. What about my Sheikh? Sheikh Muhammad Shah Jilani, Sheikh Mubarak Shah Jilani, he did it. Sheikh Uthman Sirajuddin, he did it. Sheikh Yusuf Rifai, he did it. You want to name more. Yeah, they did it. What about us? You can do it too. Subhanallah. Somebody got to wake us up. Somebody got to ring the alarm. Somebody got to yell from the rooftop. Somebody has to do it. Everybody can't be quiet while we get decimated. Okay, that was it, I think. Boy, I'm in big trouble.
Yep, that's it.
And listen, we ain't running from the smoke. And I don't mean no violence, and don't need to call the alphabet people. I'm saying we don't mind dialogue. We don't mind our ideas being challenged. We're not afraid, right? And even if we are afraid, we realize how important the matter is, so we got to overcome our fear. Listen, we're not afraid. And even if we were afraid, we realize we have to overcome our fears, because what is at stake is greater than our fear. We're not afraid. But even if we were afraid, we realize that we must overcome our fear, for what is at stake is far greater. That's our position. And if you want to beat somebody up, Imam Naeem is available. I don't want no smoke.
That's right. I'm here. Beat me up. That's what the chin is made for, right?
I'm a lover, not a fighter. Please, I don't want no trouble.
I'm not a tough guy either. I'm here for the beating.
As Charleston White say, I'm going to call the police. I'm letting you know now. I'm not a criminal. Why I got to go to jail? You're the one, man. That's what you do. You go to jail. No, stop. Oh, my goodness. All right. Dua, Imam Naeem. I went to the store. You got to go to the store now.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah guide all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us, make us, give us ikhlas, sincerity. May Allah give us the tawfiq to follow the truth wherever that leads us. by the rank of our beloved Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet, Allah's beloved Nabi, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, Imam Naeem. I forgot. Here is the link. I put it in the chat to register for this event. All what we discuss without the all the annex and the animation and the energy, academic, educational, evidences, books, proofs, all that's going to be supplied in this series. So we're going to actually open up books, look at books, have them available so you can see it with your own eyes, show you where it's at, show you the scholars, show you the books, everything you need so that you can free your mind. We're going to put it in front of you, right? We're not going according to what somebody else authorized us to say, only say this. No, we're going to do what we got to do to educate our people. So in this class, in these series of lectures, we going in. Bring your notebooks. That's all you need. Notebooks, pens, papers, Post-its. Your wife, if you ain't that good at writing down, let her do all the writing. Like, but it's going to be extremely educational. Not just lecture, books, references, actual, you can physically see it, touch it, feel it. We got to make a difference. So be prepared for really getting it. I don't like recording devices because it kind of hampers us. I would prefer that we don't record because I want you to actually make an effort. So don't record. I would prefer you not. But I know y'all going to do it anyway. So I would prefer you don't do that. Definitely, we're not live streaming it. We can't because we won't get it. I need us to get on the ground and really, really study. And I want to duplicate us. And, you know, I really do. I want to help. Let's for one time take some stuff real serious, right? Barakallahu bikum wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.